I didn't know you could eat cattails.
Look at that inner part. Take a bite. You'll like it. Get the little bit of white part. It sort of tastes like a cucumber.
Oh, you mind? Pull off.
All right. See, looks like a white onion.
It's actually mild.
That's
Isn't it?
Oh, it tastes like
What does it taste? Have you tasted it?
like a cucumber.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what it reminds me of.
I love cucumber.
That's what watermelon reminded me. And germaphobe. There you go.
But the inner part is very, very clean.
Some off too. Pass it on. You've had a little bit of everything.
So will that grow back?
This is cattails.
Yeah, from the root.
They're probably hot.
Here's another piece right here.
That was my bad.
Yeah. He'll get you at one point in time.
That one right there.
Want a bite?
I got some.
Okay. Anybody else want a bite?
I've had some.
A little bit. All right. On a cattail, if you take the roots on it in the fall, it has what looks like little corms come up, little horns on it. You can take those, peel them down, and it makes a real nutritious starch that you can cook with and eat. The inner part is edible. When the stalk comes up, when it's got the pollen on it, that's when you just strip that. When it's gold, once it turns brown, it's a little rough. But strip that gold pollen off and use about 50-50 with flour, and it's a great flour substitute. It makes real pretty, almost buckwheat-looking pancakes. Then later on, you'll see the one part of the head that comes out will be covered in leaves. Take those, boil them, and it tastes like corn on the cob.
So what part is that now you're doing?
To boil, the head when it comes out, initially the top part is covered and it looks like leaves all wrapped around
Oh,
it.
you mean before it opens up?
Yeah, before it opens up. Boil it then, and it's like dry corn on the cob. You have to put a little bit of butter and salt on it, but it tastes pretty good. It tastes sort of like corn. If you spread these apart, these are not real good because it's been dry even in the water. They tend to do that. It'll have some sticky sap in it right there. And that's a good, you can feel it right there. That's a good wound healer, good for treating cuts and scrapes and wounds. Just sort of crush it and you'll get some of that. Yeah, that's a little bit better.
Oh yeah, kind of slimy.
Slimy and sticky. All right, anybody not know black willow?
I thought it was just water willow.
Well, it does grow in the water, but it's black. It's called a black willow. 99% of the willow trees you'll see growing in Alabama that's not in somebody's yard, that's on a creek bank or in the water, is a black willow. We got Virginia willow, and that's pretty much it as far as the native willows go that you'll typically see. All right. Anybody remember how to prepare? Tommy. Okay. Dry the bark, burn it, and you take the ashes, and it's the ashes, that burning process releases the salicylic acid better. So if you take wool of these, boil them, it'll give you an aspirin. It'll help a headache and all that stuff. But if you take the bark, dry it, burn it, that releases that salicylic acid better, and you'll get a much stronger aspirin result. So if you're going to use this, what do you have to be aware of?
If you're on blood thinners.
Blood thinner. Somebody's on coumarin, heparin, any of the blood thinners. This is also a blood thinner. Birches are also blood thinners. Any of the willows, any of the birches, paper birch, white birch, river birch, which we have here, all of those have aspirin. All of those are blood thinners, as well as things like sassafras. If you were to take a branch of this, we'll take one and take it back flat. As it dries and those chemicals start to get released, it'll smell like candied green apples, sort of. Can't really smell much now, but as it dries, it does that. And the Creek Indians, especially on the coast, will take this and put it in sick rooms to take the odor of sickness out. And it smells really, really good. And it's those chemicals breaking down, and that's what does it. Good plant to use for that.
How much of those ashes do you want to use?
A spoonful to an 8-ounce glass of water. That is the equivalent to taking a couple of aspirin. And it's very, very, very effective. And it doesn't matter which willow you use. They all work. They all have aspirin in them, salicylic acid. This also is, where's Randy? Randy? Oh, there you go. Have you ever used this for rooting hormones? Okay, if you take the branches and the leaves, soak them in a big, like a 55-gallon drum of water, this has growth hormones in it, has rooting hormones. And then you water your plants and it'll make them grow like crazy. And in fact, up through the 1930s and 40s, if you were a commercial nurseryman, this is what you used, because they didn't have the synthetics at that time. And they would take this, just soak them about a week, then start watering with it. And anything that grows, it makes them grow faster. That's why if you stick this branch in that mud, there'll be a new tree pop up. These things will, or stick it in water at the house, and in a few days you'll see roots forming all over.
So how much of that did you say you add into a 55?
Just shove the thing full.
Just fill it.
And then cover it in water. And then about a week later start watering. And I would probably pull the branches out because eventually they'll start rotting and get slimy. But very, very powerful growth hormone. Okay. And all of this coming up is goldenrod. Very good for the kidneys. Good for allergies, obviously. And we've got something like, I think, 64 species of goldenrod in the South, somewhere around there. So, it's just tons of them, and it doesn't matter which ones you use. The only difference is the sweet goldenrod, which you won't find around here. You find up on the mountain on dry hillsides. It smells like licorice. It has a licorice flavor to it. So it'll make a licorice flavored tea. But these make real good tasting teas. Just use the leaves or the flowers. But the flowers, when they're about 30–40% open, is the best time to pick them for medicine for the kidneys.
Use the flowers for kidneys?
Yep, very good for the kidneys. That's where you get like the doctrine signatures. This plant looks like a body part, the color. Got these yellow flowers that stick to the kidneys and liver. Alright, horseweed. Erigeron canadensis. I think they call it now Caniza, if I'm not mistaken. It's changed it botanically. This in the 1800s was one of the most popular astringents used for any kind of internal bleeding. Very good for a wet cough, because what do you want to do with a wet cough? Dry it. That's where you got to pay attention to herbs. How many of you have ever heard of horehound cough drops? Okay. But what does horehound do? Besides it's a mint, it's got all the nervain and all of that quality, but it's a mucus producing herb. So if you have a real wet cough, even though eventually it'll help it, it can initially make it worse because it'll cause more phlegm, more fluid to be produced. But if you have a dry hacking cough, horehound's a good one to use because it helps lubricate and soften that up.
What's that again? That's horse.
This is horseweed.
Horseweed.
Most books you'll find it listed as Erigeron canadensis. They've changed it now. I think they're putting it more into what they call Caniza or something or another. But if you look up horseweed, Canada fleabane is another name for it. This is also the prime hand drill plant I use for fire making. When they get big, they'll get this tall, about that big around, cut the top, cut the bottom, strip the leaves off, and in a few days it's ready to make a hand drill fire. Very easy to use. Dog fennel. What's another name for it?
This is fennel?
But it's not the garden fennel.
Dog fennel.
Also called summer cedar. So, take a few leaves, chew them. See what you think it tastes like. And smell it too. It's very aromatic. It's actually in the Eupatorium or boneset family, but it's not a real bitter one. It's an old remedy for typhoid fever. It's very good. Just like all the Eupatoriums are fever reducers, this is another fever reducer. It's common one here in fields especially. It'll take over a field. You have to keep it bush hogged out. But it's one of the Eupatoriums, boneset,
Diaphoretic.
Very strong diaphoretic. Borders on a sudorific, in fact.
Did you say you found boneset?
No, it's in the boneset family.
Okay. All right.
Now, this would be an area where you'd find boneset, though, around these banks. Okay, anybody know the difference between, and I've asked this before, a diaphoretic and a sudorific?
Sudorific makes you sweat, right?
So does the diaphoretic.
I thought the diaphoretic acted more on the kidneys than...
Any ideas? A diaphoretic will make you sweat. A sudorific will make you sweat to where the point where it beads. Even stronger. But they're more or less interchangeable. One's just a stronger diaphoretic. It's like better, good and better. Depending on how much you want to sweat.
So, yeah, me too.
These are one of the little hawkweeds. Hard to tell, but if you'll notice there's a little bit of milky white sap in there. Any of the plants with a milky latex will take off warts. Doesn't matter which one they are. We'll find some other ones to do that.
Hawkweed.
It's one called the hawkweed. People call them false dandelions as well.
Milkweed, does that do the...
Milkweed, yeah, milkweed will work just fine. But they work in two different ways. You've got the milkweed type plants like common milkweed, dandelion, fig, all of those that have that milky caoutchouc in them. They kill the virus, take the wart off. But then you have the ones that are in the spurge family, and the spurges eat them off. Or rather, they burn them off more than anything. And that's how they kill them. Alright. How about this?
That's stuff I get out of the garden all the time.
Yep.
We used to have to pull that and feed it to the hogs when me and Rocky get in trouble.
And actually, they did. Common ragweed.
That's ragweed?
This is the common ragweed. There's a giant ragweed as well. It grows 8 or 10 feet tall. Now, the goldenrod gets the blame for allergies a lot. But what's causing the allergies mostly is the ragweed blooming. But these haven't started yet. But what they'll do is they're going to send up little blooms that come up and they hang over upside down. And they're yellowish, greenish yellow up underneath, so you don't really see the flowers, but everybody can see the goldenrod blooming. But it's more the ragweed. But it used to be people fed it to hogs. It's good for weight loss. And one of the old ways they figured a plant out was that if you threw it down on the ground and came back a little while later and it was already wilted, that's what it would do to your body. So chickweed does the same thing, goosegrass will do the same thing, or the cleavers.
I just pulled a bunch of that out.
This is, it was very common, and I've not used it for that, for somebody having convulsions. And it was another and was one of the old rabies herbs.
Okay.
This is a good example of the same plant. One you use, one you don't use. Okay. Everybody knows old hedge. Okay, it's called Chinese privet. The berries on this are what are used as an immune stimulant, like echinacea. And it's called ligustrum. No, ligustrum. It's ligustrum. And it's traditional Chinese medicine, very popular. These are a pain in the butt here because they get wild and make giant hedges that you can't get through. But the berries are real strong in the fact, since they increase the production of what are called macrophages, the killer cells. The one next to it looks like a Japanese privet. I don't see the berries on it either, but it's poisonous. But you can see the flowers getting ready to come out. See that? Oh, there, it's already got berries. See how the little berries come out? They'll be purple later on. That's what you use, about a teaspoon of the berries to a glass of water. You have to boil it, of course. And it really kick-starts the immune system. You don't use it once you're already sick. It's like you see your next door neighbor starting to sneeze and got the flu, I'd get on this. Sort of like echinacea. People use echinacea wrong a lot of times. Wisteria. That's a thistle.
That's milk thistle right there.
No, we don't have milk thistle down here. It doesn't grow here.
This doesn't?
No, that's a common bull thistle. Or Scott. Maybe it's got some.
But
But what you can do,
green bean.
Fuzzy green bean.
the seeds on it.
I take the capsules. I don't
Yeah,
know
it's
where
got
they
seeds.
get it.
It's
But
got seeds. If you take this and strip this stem down to about right here, peel it and eat it, it'll quench your thirst because it's full of water. The leaves and the root, ouch, are high in chlorophyll. So if you need anything you want to neutralize toxins in the system, you want to use chlorophyll for, this is the plant. You can boil it up and use it in a tea form. Very stickery. It doesn't matter which, any of the thistles will do that. If you've got a bee sting, fire ant bite, again, you can take these, crush them up real good, get the juice out of it, and that chlorophyll will stop the sting, stop the itch, stop the hurt bite rapidly. Okay. Here's the wisteria bloom. This is the only part of the wisteria, by the way, that's edible. The rest of it is very toxic, but the blooms can be eaten. They have a bean flavor to them.
how'd I pull that?
Wisteria.
There's some more over here. They sort of resemble kudzu blossom.
I've never seen it.
Isn't that kudzu blossom jelly?
Oh, I love it. Yeah.
I've never had it.
Okay. And then your honeysuckle, which also have the the orangish yellow bloom. Very powerful antibiotic for gram-negative and gram-positive bacteria. And use the blooms. If anybody ever used Airborne,
Yeah,
Walmart?
I have.
That's what's in it. It's this and the privet. No, not privet. Forsythia blossoms. So you use the blooms on this and the blooms on Forsythia blossom, and it's a very powerful antiviral and antibacterial.
Make it in tea.
You make it into a tea or a tincture. Tincture works real well. And it's good for headaches too.
What?
Cow itch. Cow itch. Also called trumpet creeper. Beautiful blooms.
What'd you call it the first time?
Cow itch.
Cow itch?
Itch. Like itchy cow. You would probably not want to handle this because you're pale skinned, and pale skinned people tend to be very allergic to this. Some people, doesn't bother me, but be careful because some people it'll break them out like English ivy would.
Okay.
In fact, we used to take it when as kids and you'd dry the leaves, powder them up and put it in people's shoes and stuff. Very effective for that.
Old folks also call that
One or another.
Elderberry, isn't it?
What kind of plant is this?
Isn't this sumac?
That's sumac.
Sumac. Oh. Now, what kind?
I don't know.
Staghorn.
Nope, doesn't grow here.
Dwarf.
Have to go up around Huntsville to find any.
Dwarf sumac.
Dwarf or winged sumac. Look at see the wings between the leaflets?
Okay, this thing, this stuff.
Yeah, pass that around.
Which sumac is that?
Called dwarf or winged sumac. Either one works. And you can call it shoemake as well. That's tomato. Also, if you notice, look at the bark on it, sort of warty and brownish looking. And the flowers, which are just now coming out, are more open than the scarlet or smooth sumac. The berries are going to be a more of a mousy reddish brown, not the real pretty bright red and reddish black that the scarlet sumac is. Either one works the same. I think the other one I like it a little bit better. The berries on this are powerful antiviral, very, very, very good for the kidneys. This is the one where, if you've heard me tell the story about Aunt Susie down at Lake Okeechobee, Florida, she was 112 years old when I first got started into herbs, and family called up. I knew them real well, and they said, "Can you do something for Aunt Susie? She's been sent home to die on dialysis." And her grandfather fought the Seminole Wars, so she was a very much beloved woman, etc., etc. So I went to Tommy and said, "Tommy, what can we put together for her?" And we brainstormed together, put some stuff together that had smartweed and that, and it had sumac in it. 3 months later, I got a letter saying, "Could you please send more of this down? We can't keep Aunt Susie at home anymore. It's got her kidneys working. She's out walking, just doing wonders. Lived to the age of 116. This, you can use the bark as well as an antiviral. The bark, the fruit, the leaves are incredibly strong astringents, full of tannins. The berries are just wonderful in cough medicines. Very good for the lungs. And then I was telling, who was it, Ed? I think I was telling you that the other day. Yeah, when they're red, we'll find some today or tomorrow that are nice and red on the smooth sumac. In fact, we can do down at Alphala. And if you take them and put them in either in water, make sun tea, or just very lightly simmer them, the tea tastes like pink lemonade. If you boil it, the tannins will set and it'll be sort of real puckery, which some people don't care about. But this is one that if the swine flu hits real hard this fall like it should, this would be one of the ones you need to know, along with elderberry and helol.
You need to take those and dry everything first, and then you use it.
Yeah. No, if it's fresh, you know, that's why the idea over the course of this year is to learn what's available at any given time of the year.
Right.
But you can dry these and use them. They dry real oily, but they'll be dried and then put them where they, make sure they're dry or they'll mold on you real bad. And you can also take these, especially on the scarlet sumac, strip them out or cut them down to the small little branches and freeze them.
Okay.
And that'll work just fine.
I need a new freezer, Chuck.
I did that with poke that with
It has a square stem.
Okay.
Took three
That's as far as we got.
three every week, something like that. Seemed like it worked.
Yeah, so about 3 every couple of 3 days is,
Yeah.
is fine. Just don't chew the seeds. All right, pass that around and fill the stem. You would not think that nature would make something so square. But all of the mints have square stems. Helol, which is in the mint family. And that's called blue verbena. This is actually probably the Brazilian one. And we've got 5 or 6 varieties that grow here. They all work exactly the same. It's another good antiviral, very good cough medicine, and it's about 3rd down on the line past lobelia and skullcap as a pain reliever.
And what is that called?
Blue verbena or vervain, V-E-R-V-A-I-N.
So you could take that and crush it and simmer
Make it
it
into
down, make
teas
tea.
or tinctures, which are alcohol based, and that concentrates it and you use less of it. But it's very, very effective.
Antiviral and pain.
I don't make any of my cough formulas without that in there. Even when I use lobelia, I'll still have that in the formula. And it's common. It's everywhere around here. And they'll grow 5-6 feet tall. And you've got the little dwarf ones that grow about that tall. If you go down I-50 or I-65, you go from Shelby County, you go down to Verbena, Alabama, and it's all on the sides of the road. But it's only about that tall. All right. You could use these like this now if you want to for arthritis. If you got like mild arthritis in a wrist or an elbow, I let them get bigger, but take a couple or 3 berries, swallow them. Do not chew. The reason you don't chew is 2 reasons. Number 1, the berries are the real toxic part of them. I mean, the seeds rather are not that toxic. They won't kill you, but they're very, very bitter. And if you swallow them like a pill whole, it'll go through your system, and the seeds are real hard, and the shell has to go through the digestive system of something in order to easily sprout. That's why you see them a lot where birds have sat, because it goes through the digestive system. The acids weaken the shell, and then it sprouts. But in your system, it'll just go on through, and that'll really relieve the arthritic pains pretty well.
And how many you do a day?
I do 2 or 3 every couple or 3 days.
Can you give them to a dog?
Sure. I've got an old patent medicine book. There you go by weight. I got an old patent medicine book. It's called 1 for a man, 2 for a horse.
Okay.
Same thing, veterinary review live, or even with children, it's by body weight.
Okay.
And if you want something real strong, but you got to be real practiced in this, is use the root. But it is very toxic, very potent, but it's very effective if you know what you're doing.
Is very good now or later on?
Plastic barrel. If you want to really get a powerful antiviral in a tincture form, use the root. But you use it in drops, like 1 to 5 drops on up to maybe about 15, depending on your size. And it's hard to beat it as an antiviral. But when you start to feel a little weird, like you're not quite yourself, you better back up, because it's very, very toxic, very strong. but it's also a powerful antiviral, and it's very, very good for arthritis. I'm talking crippling arthritis. If you use the root, very fiery, very hot root, and it'll really loosen you up. It has what are called saponins, which are soapy molecules, and they're very cleansing, and they really do wonders to arthritis. The root also pounded up and put, as the hot pulses will pull out tumors, breast tumors. And it goes in a lot of cancer formulas. It goes in Tommy Bassett's salve I make. And of course the leaves are edible when they're smaller. Excellent plant. And we made pokeberry wine last year with it, and it was very good. Alright. Here's your poison ivy. Alright. This is about the size you want to use it. See how big they are? About like these. I put 2 or 3 even in a capsule, but one will do. And it'll warp the capsule for a day or two, let it dry out, and then just pop one. I pop one a day for a couple of weeks. That's only because then I remember to do it every day. But really every couple or 3 days for about 2 weeks or so. And it'll give you, most people, about a year's worth of immunity. I've known people gotten up to 3 years with it. The longer I've done it, the less sensitive I've been to poison ivy. So I don't go rolling around in it, but it's very effective.
What is that?
Poison ivy.
That is poison ivy. And then you eat the little bit.
Take the leaves when they're about that big. Paper tweezer, shove them in an empty gelatin capsule. Let it sit for a day or two to the moisture to dry up, and then pop one every couple or 3 days.
I've got some already
Now,
made
that's
up
why I said I do one a day because it's easy to remember. And a couple of weeks, and I have just waded through it this year as usual, and it doesn't bother me. I had one little bump popped up, that was it. And it'll protect you against poison oak and poison sumac.
Oh.
Alright, everybody should know this.
Sweet gum.
Sweet gum. This is in the same family where you get tincture benzoin. This is interesting, is that when I first started doing herbs, Tommy said, well son, if you've got a flu, go get you some sweet gum bark and make your tea out of it, and it'll cure the flu. And sure enough, works great. It's a great stimulating expectorant, real good for the lungs, good for the sinuses. And about 3 years ago, there's a big thing came out. Remember when they had the earthquake in China, and it destroyed a lot of the star anise in China. There are 4 provinces it grows. 2 of them got really messed up, and Merck and all the other drug companies are buying all they can because this is where Tamiflu comes from. And Tamiflu, the active ingredient is shikimic acid, and so is getting in short supply. But they have now found that the fruit, the balls on this, the seeds in particular, have shikimic acid in them. It's not like I think star anise is 7% shikimic acid. This is maybe 3%. But around here, every other tree in some areas is a sweet gum tree, and so Tommy didn't know what shikimic acid was. I've never heard of Tamiflu. Okay, that makes sense. This is why it works, because it has shikimic acid in it. And you can use the fruit, and if you look at if we find one with the ball on it, it looks like a bunch of closed up eyes. And the Creeks and the Cherokees, going along with the doctrine of signatures, even though they didn't call it that, looked at it and thought, well, if you boil sweet gum balls, what does it do? The eyes will open up, or you put it by fire, eyes open up, it let the seeds out, just like pine cones do. And I figured if it opened the eyes on that up, it would open up your sinuses and your lungs and your sinuses, and that's exactly what it does. Very good internally to open up the bronchial tube, open up your sinuses, and it's better used in conjunction with other herbs, but it's very effective for that. If you take the resin, it's real good to cleanse, to put on wounds, cuts and scrapes. Very antiseptic, sort of like pine resin is. And if you've got mild arthritic pains, you can take the young leaves at the end of the branches, boil them in hot water and put them as hot as you can stand on that joint, and it'll give you temporary relief, loosen them up. All right, how about this?
You got any idea?
Redbud.
Oh, really?
Okay. Redbud is another real good astringent, good for wet coughs because of the tannins in it. The green beans, when they come out in the spring, you can cook them and eat them. When they get ripe, they're very full of tannins, and so what you need to do is you take them and roast them, and then that takes a lot of tannic, bitter bite out of them. But it's very good for a wet cough, bleeding, poison ivy, and the seeds and the fruit, the flowers rather, have been used for tinnitus or Meniere's disease. Also, the flowers are really good tasting in the spring on fruit salads and stuff. They give it a little beany taste because they're in the legume family. Very tasty. And they're real pretty. Let's walk through and we'll cut across the cemetery trail.
Blackberries.
Here's the blackberries.
Are there any berries? Yeah, okay, here we go. Here's some berries on. I'll walk up past them. Alright.
I missed that one, man.
Looking at the blackberries. Now, alright, Tommy, you should know this one. How do you tell blackberry from a dewberry?
Stem's green, and it's
Got angles to it.
yeah. Where the other
Of course,
one's round.
dewberry, they tend to be more purplish, and they're arching canes that just lay all over the place. When we go down behind the mall tomorrow, you'll see dewberries. Doesn't matter. A dewberry is a blackberry, but they're just two different types, and they have better berries on them.
Yeah.
All right. During the war between states, couldn't get through the Yankee blockade. Malaria, yellow fever, all those things were endemic. One of the big things that fell soldiers on both sides was bacterial dysentery. Bad water. And so they would take blackberry roots, make teas out of it, and that would get rid of the dysentery because it is a powerful astringent, pulls the moisture out of the bacteria, out of protozoas, out of any of those bugs. They implode, collapse, and die. Also, it's very toning and astringent to the bowels. If it wasn't quite as bad, you'd go to the green fruit, which is still very astringent, the leaves, and the ripe fruit. If you had kids that had summer complaints, just running around barefooted and getting, upset stomachs and diarrhea, you give them blackberry jelly or juice. Don't do the seeds. The seeds are a scouring laxative. So you got somebody with irritable bowel syndrome, and you give them blackberry jam, it'll tear them up. Blackberry leaves are also very good at regulating histamine levels in your body. They're natural antihistamines. So they're starting to show up in sinus formulas. And Tommy always told me, he said it was good for kids that couldn't drink milk, and that's what it was doing, is it was work on the histamine reaction. And so it's good for milk allergies. But don't use the seeds unless you want a real good laxative, because it goes in there and just scours out the colon and infection. Let's cut across the
What is this?
So the
Wet,
seed.
looking like stuff on it.
That is sap coming out of them. It drips down. Makes milk and cows bitter. Another antiviral. If it looks like a volunteer. What do you think?
Bitter weed?
Mm-hmm.
Got the animal right.
All right. Now. Okay, spit it out. Now, but what is your mouth doing besides going? You're salivating, aren't you? Mm-hmm. All right. What do bitter plants do? They're liver stimulants. They're gallbladder stimulants. So that's why in Europe you drink a little bit of a bitter before and after a meal, because it stimulates the production of what? Ptyalin, which breaks down simple sugars in the mouth, bile, bilirubin. It helps the whole digestive system kick into gear, and that's what a bitter tonic does, because it works on the liver.
All right, let me ask this question then. If I was to make a salad and I put some of this in with it and eat the salad before I eat the meal, that would help with the liver.
It yet?
You wouldn't get anybody to eat it.
Take your taste of it and see what you think. You might think it's a little too bitter.
Tasted it.
Hey, don't feel bad. My first one he made me eat was a hit.
Does the bone set do the
Bitter quinine.
Kinfolk here.
I know what that is.
The berries are good.
That's
great.
They are,
They
they're
are
not.
sweet. I could not believe how good they were.
All right, Pat, here, cut some off. Pass that and smell it.
No, I was here.
I can't.
Can you smell it already?
Say you already smell it.
All right. And
Can you smell it?
what are you smelling?
Cyanide.
Cyanide. Cherries
Wild cherry tree.
Peach, all those have cyanide in them, hydrocyanic acid. That's why if you have cattle, goats, sheep, you got to watch around wilted cherry leaves because it can kill them. Only when they wilt. When they're green, the cyanide's at about the right level. The bark has about the right level, especially when it's dried. But the wilted leaves, it's like dehydrating fruit. But if you went back in the probably up through even the 50s, you used to go to pharmacies, you could get cyanide water. And it was a hydrocyanic cough sedative, and that's what cherry does. It doesn't matter which cherry you use, they all work. Or even there's the cherry laurel, which is where it came from. And small amounts, it calms and sedates the lungs like lobelia does. But cherry also does another thing. It helps lung tissue to regrow. Sort of like plantain does regular skin tissue. So it helps to sedate the bronchial spasms, open up the lungs. It also helps that destroyed lung tissue to regrow.
So would that
Doesn't
be
change
tea?
scar tissue.
Tea or tincture form for the lungs? Or
Either one, but tea works the best.
tea?
Can you take the berries and stuff like that and cook them down and make a cough and
Yes.
strain
Oh,
it
yeah.
from the
Yeah.
strain the seeds away from it and make
So
a
would
cough
this
medicine?
be something like a former smoker might use?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. It's one of the few herbs out there that really works directly on
What
lung
about a
tissue.
present
Like
smoker?
that to help regrow lung tissue.
Okay.
Alright. What is that? Oh, that Fido bedroom.
Oh yeah, the trumpet.
It's angel trumpets. It's a datura. This is the same
that it was here.
same family as Jimson weed. Well, a lot of plants, so is aspirin. If you use too much of it. Yeah. Like I always say, take 100 Tylenol and a shot of gin, see what happens.
Oh,
It's toxic.
really?
It's toxic. But in the right amounts, it's medicinal. Now, this is not one you normally use internally, though it can be. But in skin salves, this is a powerful healer to skin tissue. So you can use this, or you can use the Jimson weed. Either one. Very potent.
We grows in our garden.
Skin healer. This is also another one that if you've got asthma, like Jimson weed, you can dry this, roll it up, roll it in paper, smoke it, and it'll immediately open up the lungs and stop the asthmatic spasms. You used to go to any druggist and buy Jimson weed cigarettes. They were commercially rolled, but it was just Jimson weed dried and put into a cigarette form.
But
and
you
it
can't
just,
do it anymore.
Nah,
can
you
you?
can make them yourself. And very, very effective for asthma, and it's good for bronchitis as well. But it's a wonderful skin healer.
Wonderful skin healer.
Yeah, it always goes in the salves. When Tommy Bass first started making his salve in, 1915, his grandparents made it in England in the 1800s, it had tobacco in it. Because tobacco externally is very healing to skin. But people didn't like it because it stained, so he dropped it and went to Jimson weed. Now next to it is one we were just taking pictures of the other day. Passion flower, maypop. In Europe, this outsells a lot of commercial sedatives, pharmaceutical sedatives. It's so popular. Any part of it, the leaves, the flowers, the green fruit, will make you sleep and it'll just calm your nerves and relax you. It's also good for swollen glands, internally used.
Well, that's the reason Mama would never let us eat the maypop until late in the evening after we pick cotton all day.
The fruit, when it gets ripe and yellow in the fall, is very lemony flavored, very tasty. When it's green, it's nothing to it. It's like puffy cotton inside.
So I'm sorry, how much of it?
Oh, that a general amount of that would be about, if you were to dry it and grind it up, probably a teaspoon to a tablespoon to a cup of water.
The leaves or whatever, any of it?
Any part of it. And dry and grind and steep it like you would a tea. Very, very. You can boil them up green. You just have to use a little bit more. But it's very good to calm your nerves, relax you. And it's called passion flower because it looked like the Passion of the Christ, the crucifixion.
You can take the flower itself and
Whole
do it.
plant, even the fruit when it's green. When the fruit's ripe, I don't know, I've never tried it when it's ripe, but I don't think it would do the same thing, but I could be wrong. And you go to, anywhere in the tropics, they've got different tropical passion fruit, which do the same thing, but they have purple fruit and some are red. Then next to it down here, violets. The wild smooth violet. These will have the blue flowers on them. The leaves are very, very good to eat. Very sort of like spinach. The leaves and the flowers have more vitamin C than an orange. The flowers, I believe it's the flowers too, mainly are a source of rutin for strengthening capillaries. It's a traditional cough medicine, used as a blood purifier for internal cancers. The root on this has, it's like it comes as a little, it's probably considered a rhizome, and it's a little short thing, it's white. If you scrape it off, all the side roots and dirt off of it, chew it up, it'll stop heartburn just immediately.
Oh, I did try that, and it worked within 3 minutes. I knocked the dirt off, didn't rinse it, stuck it in, and
Very
it did
good
work.
for that.
So you just pull it up from the roots, take the rhizome.
Yeah, it's got, it looks like, you see it's sort of white with little roots coming off of it. Just scrape it down to where the white part is.
Okay.
That's just to get the dirt taste away.
Okay.
And chew it up and it'll heartburn like that. Just a short period of time.
We also eat the leaves in the family. She eats them all the time. We don't eat lettuce now, we eat bites.
I just pulled it.
Okay.
You need all you want.
Virginia
Okay.
creeper.
Virginia creeper. People think, well, it's poison ivy, but it's got how many leaves?
5.
How many leaves?
1.
1. I forgot. Okay.
Oh.
5 leaflets. Poison ivy has how many leaves?
3.
1,
3 leaflets. Yeah, I should have got that one. Anyway,
I've been up since 3 o'clock.
but poison ivy, when you get it, if you don't have plantain around, which is going to be hard not to, this is very good for poison ivy, knocking it out and drying it up. Except when?
When it turns red in the fall.
Red and orange in the fall, then it'll break you out if you're sensitive to it. Only use it when it's green. And then when it turns colors, don't use it. But it's one of the top herbs for poison ivy, poison oak.
Well, I've been pulling it up for days now. It's been wrapped around everything we've got.
It does. It won't kill a tree out, but it'll climb a lot. The berries are black on it, and they're slightly toxic to children.
Well,
But it was used for fevers too.
isn't it true that where you see that usually is poison ivy?
Well, you know,
So
that's
that's probably what you got.
they're saying usually there's jewelweed around poison ivy. That's only because poison ivy is everywhere.
Okay.
I'm kind of allergic to that. Whenever I pull that, we had some on the tree and pulled it off, and I broke out.
In the fall, it'll treat you like poison
I
ivy.
hadn't been around that though when I had the breakout. It was before I touched the Virginia creeper, so.
Okay. And this is,
We always called it billy goat grass.
I know, but the true name is wood sorrel, oxalis. And here's the flowers on this one here. Pink.
Wood sorrel?
Wood sorrel or oxalis, O-X-A-L-I-S. This is the true shamrock in Ireland. It's not, shamrocks are not clover, they're oxalis. They just look like clovers. And you can find the big oxalis, you know, at the garden shops that have leaves that big and purple underneath on a lot of them. Here's the flowers on it too down there. And there you go.
I was about to say it looks like clover.
Take a bite of that. It does look like clover. The clover doesn't grow up that tall like that. Has a very lemon flavor, and that lemon flavor is oxalic acid. So, if it's an acid, what could you use it for?
Now here's lemony. Anybody else?
Well, what does an acid do? It eats things off.
It's corrosive, yeah.
Corrosive, so what would it be good for externally? Skin cancers, warts, moles.
Really?
Would it be bad to eat a lot of that?
Only if you're prone to kidney stones. Because oxalic acid leaches calcium out of the bones if you use it a lot, and people that are prone to kidney stones need to avoid that. But you know, so does spinach and kale. They'll do the same thing, and cokes. But it's very good if you go anywhere in South Alabama, South Georgia. Any old granny lady that had a skin cancer formula, it had this in it or sheep's oil, because it's also full of oxalic acid. It has that lemony flavor. But it's very good because it slowly, it's like if you've got a wart, you can take pure aspirin, wet it, crush it down, and put it wet on that mole, that wart, and it'll eventually take it off. Because it eats it away.
Well, that's family of yellow rose.
Take that and smell that. What you're smelling is berberine. very distinctive bitter smell to it.
Yeah,
What's in, everybody familiar with shrub yellow root? Okay. If not, we'll need to familiarize you. Best thing in the world for stomach ulcers, mouth sores, mouth ulcers, canker sores, the liver, the gallbladder, skin salves, you name it. The chemical in it is called berberine. That's why it has that same smell, that same. I'll bring in some this afternoon. I've got in a pot at the house, and it's a real nice bitter. It's not so bitter you don't get used to it, but it's a wonderful antibiotic. In fact, if you look at golden seal, which a lot of people call yellow root, especially in Tennessee, it's yellow, has that same smell because it has berberine in it as well as hydrastine, which is real strong. This is the best thing in the world for a stomach ulcer. And you know, I always tell a story when Tommy was in his late 80s, or mid 80s anyway. The FDA came and visited him one time. From somebody reported him or they heard about him, and they said, "Mr. Bass, you can't claim that yellow root will cure stomach ulcers." And they said, "Well, we've been doing this for 77 years, and it'll cure stomach ulcers." They said, "But that's a new claim. You can't. You know, people have been doing that for hundreds of years here." 2 or 3 years later, James Duke, who's with the Department of Agriculture, the bigwig who at that time, he went all over the world looking for medicinal plants for the government to test, said, "Now wait a minute, what causes stomach ulcers?" The H. pylori bacteria causes 90% or 85% of all stomach ulcers. U.S. government laboratory testing, what kills that bacteria? Berberine. What's in yellow root? Berberine. Therefore, berberine, yellow root kills stomach ulcers. Tommy didn't know what berberine was. He just knew if you took yellow root and drank it, it cured a stomach ulcer. And in Gadsden, back in the 60s and into the early 70s, well, probably the 50s to the early 70s, there was an old herb doctor called Doc Enid. And he had a stomach ulcer cure that people from all over the South came to get. And all it was is he'd get yellow root from Tommy and buy golden seal, mix it up, grind it up, mix it up with mayonnaise to get you down because it's so bitter. And that was just the medium because it's, you know, slick and goes down fast. But people from all over the South came just to get that yellow root golden seal cure for stomach ulcers.
And that's yellow root?
Oh my
No,
God.
this is called Oregon grape or Mahonia.
Oregon grape.
Grows out west. It'll grow here just fine. You'll see it in the woods every once in a while popped up. It's starting to naturalize now. And has, I don't see them, but you can see where the blooms were from the last year. This one's not bloomed or it's not going to. And it'll have, looks like big clusters of blue berries on it, which you can actually make jelly from. And that's why it's called Oregon grape, but it's actually a type of holly.
It looks like a holly to me.
Yeah, it's just got big leaves, and they'll poke you. But you see that none of the other ones have that. Right, that yellow look to it. That's the only one that does. You can also look at Nandina. People grow in their yard. Has that? You scrape the bark, it's yellow. Has berberine in it. So does gold thread. Several plants do.
Gold thread's that stuff that grows around the plant all over the place, right?
Not the one here. The one, and probably what you're seeing. And I need to see if that's got berberine in it. But that is dogwood. James, how can you always tell a dogwood tree?
Hey, it's hard.
Bark. Roof, get it? By its bark. Anyway, alright. Back again during the War Between States. Couldn't get through the Yankee blockade. There was a Dr. Francis Porcher. I think I mentioned him to y'all when I was talking before. He was a South Carolinian planter, had a big farm, plantation, and he was a doctor. And the Confederate Surgeon General came to him and said, "We need something to use as a resource for, you know, herbal medicine, for sources of gunpowder, for this, that we don't have to go through the blockade to get." So he went back and did a 700-page book called Resources of Southern Fields and Forests, which, you know, I've got on CD if anybody needs it. And it's in reprint now, but it's about $70. And they went back to using this for malaria and yellow fever. The capital of the Confederacy was originally where? Montgomery. Why they move it? Malaria, yellow fever. In fact, Birmingham had malaria epidemic as late as 1914. Major epidemics in Tuscaloosa and Birmingham with malaria. And so they went back to using this old remedy, and that was the theory. You went back to, even though this was an North American Indian remedy, of like curing like. And that theory was if you take an overdose of a plant and you're healthy, it'll give you the symptoms that it'll cure. So if you take an overdose of dogwood bark, or if you don't age it properly, it'll give you night sweats, it'll give you a fever that comes and goes in a cycle, and it'll give you leg cramps, which are symptoms of malaria. And so they had these big ovens down in New Orleans, and they take the berries, age them for a year, dry them, then parch them in the ovens, and then they'd mix these bitter tonics and send them out to the troops. And it was considered as effective as quinine. Very good for any kind of what they call the intermittence. If you ever hear that on a documentary or in a book, somebody had the intermittence, or swamp fever. That's what they were talking about with malaria or yellow fever.
I was going to say, is it the same as what they called? Was it yellow jack?
They had yellow fever.
Yeah, but
Yeah,
it
but they-
was known. They
I
had
never-
Nicaragua,
Yeah.
all through there, yellow jack.
Yellow
Is that what they
jack.
call it? Okay, I've never heard it called that. But any of those intermittent fevers, like malaria and yellow fever, and what it does is it inhibits the ability of any bug or virus, so it's a good antiviral, to replicate itself. And it goes through it faster, and it can't reproduce, so it dies out of your system. But they loved it, and that's where the drinking of bitter tonics came from, was during war, was they would drink these things that were bitter because they worked on the liver and the gallbladder, they were antiviral, and people developed a taste for them. When you think about it, what is beer? Beer is very bitter, unless you drink root beer. And, who in their right mind wants to drink something that bitter the first time they taste it? But beer was developed for two reasons. Number one, it was developed as medicine, and two, as a way to preserve water. That's why in the 1700s, if you ever hear of near beer, that's what they gave that to the kids. That was just the dregs of the beer made into beer and made into beer and made into beer, until it's just a faint beer flavor, but it had enough alcohol in it to kill the bugs. So even the kids were drinking beer, at that time. Still drinking beer. All right, I don't know what this is, but it's a magnolia. I'm not sure what species of magnolia. It's maybe just some cultivated variety. You can tell by the leaf shape and by the buds. All of the magnolias are real good liver medicines. Oh, wait a minute. There's always somebody pulling up the rear, Tommy. He's heard this before anyway. Anyway, they're real good for the liver. If you go to Walmart, what's one of the popular remedies they sell for weight loss? Called Reliquor. And what does it do? It reduces the stress hormones that causes you to gain abdominal weight. What's it made from? Cucumber trees, the cucumber magnolias. In fact, if you get the big cucumber magnolias that are so pretty, we've got out towards Winston County and up in the Smoky some in North Georgia, it has the huge leaves. It's the same exact tree that they get the bark from in China. And which is funny, because even though it's not bitter, it's also considered a bitter tonic, in that it kicks the liver into gear. So it's like a thermos, keeps hot things hot, cold things cold. It knows, it helps regulate the liver, so if you need to lose weight, it'll help you lose weight. If you need to gain weight, it'll actually help you gain weight. But one of the things I like even better about this is it's one of the best herbs in the world for arthritis. Especially, though you don't have to, when you combine it with prickly ash. See, even though poke root is probably better technically, it's also toxic, so you got to be careful with it. Whereas this, you could drink a gallon of it and not have a problem. But this will really, really loosen you up. Especially good to add bromelain with it. Bromelain. It's a pineapple enzyme made from the stems of pineapples. Very, very fast, very effective. It does not take long to work, and it'll work on regular arthritis. It'll work on rheumatoid arthritis, which is technically an autoimmune disorder condition. Either one, it'll loosen you up, and it's very, very good. My sister has bad arthritis in her back, and they weren't able to ride the motorcycles for a long time. Put her on this and bromelain. The next year at Christmas, she said, all of a sudden it hit her. She said, ever since I've been taking that stuff, my back's not been hurting anymore. And she'd been living on aspirin for a long time.
How was she taking it?
You boil it up in the tea.
All right, it's the same thing.
You use common southern magnolia too, but it's not as strong.
Okay, we call them cowcumber.
Cowcumber, same thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now I could take the
Just
leaves from the cowcumber.
Take the bark. It'll
Yeah.
pop us off like this.
Yeah.
And you'll get one in that bark, especially in the summertime. will just peel out, and that's what you use.
And kind of boil
Boil
it
it
down.
up, and it's got a, I don't know if these do or not. Let's see, it's got a, not a bad odor, but it's a yeah, it's got a distinctive odor to it to me. And it's hard to tell on those, but once you smell it, you'll know it. It's strong, but not bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Crush the leaf and see if you get that same odor. And it works really. It's probably, mix that with prickly ash, one of my favorite combinations for arthritis.
Well,
You're
if you
talking
made,
about osteo or rheumatoid?
Either one.
Either one.
Either one.
if you made a tea with that and then eat pineapple in the natural juice.
No, because you'll never get enough pineapple in you to do that. You'll break your mouth out before you get that level. The bromelain is made from the stems. It's a white powder, and it's concentrated, and that's the best way to do it. You could eat pineapple if you want, but you're really not going to get enough in your system as such to do it. But you don't have to use it with this.
I could
if you
just
don't want
use,
to.
I could just use
this.
that. Okay.
And I'll show y'all, maybe towards the end of the day, we'll as we break up, we'll go up Bowles Hall, and there's this sumac blooming, there's prickly ash up there, and we'll let you see prickly ash. We don't see one here.
That the Indians used to make a dipper out of, where they'd fold it over
That's
and then...
easy wood to use. Okay. Now, of all the things I do to you, this will be the nicest one because you'll like this. Go ahead and eat it when you get it. Not bad tasting.
It's
Yeah,
a
at all.
daylily, yeah. Taking that bitterweed out of my mouth.
It will.
It's still...
Is it not?
It still hadn't
Is it
gone
not
away.
good?
No, this is. Bitterweed wasn't, but this is good.
You can take these. You got a nice sweet bite to it. You can take these, dry them, put them in soups and stews and things. It's real nice flavoring to add. When they're like this, you can cook them. You steam them, and you'll find this a lot in Chinese cooking. The roots on this have little tubers, like little miniature Jerusalem artichokes. Very nutty and tasty. Don't eat the leaves or the stems. They will swell your throat up, full of acids.
What's the name again?
Called a daylily, common daylily.
Okay, I thought it was, but I wasn't sure.
You see them all over the roadside.
I got them in my backyard.
What do you do with those?
Has little tubers, looks like little round balls on them. They're like little Jerusalem artichokes. You put them in salads. They're very nutty. They got a little nut flavor to them. Very, very, very nice tasting.
Spirits have it.
But if you take these, dry these, you can use them like as thickeners in soups and stews, or just put them on salads. And it's an old kidney medicine. The pine, that is called cherry laurel. That's where the cherry laurel water came from. It was used as a hydrocyanic cough sedative. Very poisonous because of cyanide.
Sawbriar.
Yeah, that's the cherry laurel right there.
And that stuff hurts.
Okay.
That's all.
Huh?
Say nothing.
Sawbriar. You see the berries underneath them. This is the original sarsaparilla.
What did you call it?
Sawbriar.
Sawbriar.
Smilax.
We call it greenbrier. That's why.
Greenbrier. That is. Same thing. You've got bullbriar, greenbrier, catbrier, sandbriar, black and red bamboo. They're all smilax.
Okay.
Slightly different shapes of the leaves and the stems. They're all the same plant. This is the original source for the steroid precursors.
Oh.
So if somebody, like men, you can go get tincture of smilax at a health food store for building muscle mass for bodybuilders. The root is very good anti-inflammatory because of the steroid, and it's the precursors that make up steroids. So as opposed to being an anabolic steroid that hurts your liver, this is good for your liver. This is also a good liver gallbladder herb. Good for arthritis because the steroids as anti-inflammatories. The root is what the creek and the Seminoles use for what they call red coon tea, which is a jelly, red jelly, and use the roots. Has huge knobby roots on it. They're sort of tan looking, and then as you cut into them and the air hits them, they oxidize and it turns red. That's where that red jelly came from. It's real hard, time consuming to make. But it's a great plant to use. This also, if you know anybody that smokes a pipe, then the best pipe in the world to smoke is a briar pipe from Ireland. The root on this is real hard, but it can be carved. Almost looks like coffee, doesn't it?
That's the
Tree? Oh, okay. That's not coffee.
looks like that.
Almost. Okay, this is called hackberry. There's no other tree gonna look like it.
Hackberry.
H-A-C-K.
Hackberry.
And it'll actually have red fruit on it, orangish red fruit, that sort of like an old pithy apple that you can make jelly out of. It's an old medicine for fevers. And what it does is, like any of the members of the apple family, they're refrigerants. They cool fevers down. They don't make you sweat. And you can look on this one. If you look carefully, you'll see the fruit starting to develop on it. Oh, that's a ladybird. Saw one just a second ago. Somewhere up in there.
Did you say that
Here
was?
they go. See the, that's not, that's a doll. Never mind. Alright. Okay. What is this?
Redbud?
Mulberry. Mulberry.
Mulberry.
Good edible fruit. But look what happens when you break one. Look at that milky latex.
Milky.
So what will it do? Works mold, skin cancers. Also, that latex will get rid of worms.
Will all latex do that?
Huh?
Will all the latexes do that?
Worms? No.
Just the mulberry?
Mulberry will. The thing you gotta watch though is don't eat a lot of the green fruit, they're hallucinogenic. But they give you bad stomach cramps too.
The white fruit is great.
Out of the right fruit.
Right, yeah.
Out of the right fruit.
When they turn, they'll turn almost black.
And they're okay. About a handful I like. After that, they're sort of bland. But they're real good once you got sugar to make jelly out of it.
Daddy used to make wine out of it.
The green fruit.
The green fruit, unripe fruit.
Okay.
Okay, and this is
Sassafras.
sassafras. Alright, everybody always knows about sassafras tea. Okay, anybody want to tell me what it's good for?
It's a blood cleanser.
Blood cleanser, blood thinner. What else?
I don't know, I like to drink it tasty. Sassafras.
It'll make your hair grow, soften up hair, make it shiny. If you take a big branch, split it in half, it's got a pith in the center. That pith, if you put it in hot water and soften it up, put it on your eyes, is good for conjunctivitis.
Oh.
The tea will get rid of lice in children, or I guess in adults. It's a diaphoretic. Really borders on sudorific, will make you sweat gangbusters if you've got a viral infection. If you mix this with yellow root and drink a cup of it every day or in the evenings, it'll make you sleep like a baby and you just won't get viral or bacterial infections in the wintertime. It's such a good antiviral. And the yellow root's antibacterial. Take your leaf, roll the leaf up and chew it. Everybody knows about the root, but the leaves is where you get filet or filet gumbo. It's just dried powdered sassafras leaves, but they have more of a lemony flavor, and it gets real mucilaginous, so you can thicken up soups and stews and brews with it. But it'll quench your thirst, help your hunger pains, but it's very tasty.
If you combine it with the Oregon grape holly, that root.
Either one, yeah, or yellow root, anything with it's the berberine and the yellow root that's doing it. And you can make real good jelly and syrup out of the leaf, as well as the root. Root's got those, it's got the root beer flavor to it.
Whenever you do to make it, like you're going to make root beer, nut tea and stuff like that, I don't want to, what I've got on the farm, I don't want to get all the roots.
Yeah, because this is actually a big one. Get the feeder roots that go off to the side.
Okay.
They won't hurt it.
And it'll still grow.
Oh yeah, yeah.
If you got high blood pressure, don't drink sassafras tea.
No, it will raise your blood pressure.
It will.
Yeah. Yeah.
Grapeseed extract tablets.
All right. Here's your wild lettuce. Another one. Look at that nice latex coming out of it. See it here? killer to warts and moles and skin cancers. This is also where lacticarium came from. I've seen this stuff take a wart in a day and start turning brown crust over on some warts. Get some every day. Use that like that. What'd you say?
Right there.
Oh. And
I've got 2 different people at churches taking moles off.
yeah,
I mean, in 3 days, they came back and said, hey,
yeah.
it's
See how it
gone.
comes out? If you let this stuff come out, peel them like this or score it, let that dry, roll it up and smoke it. It'll make you sleep like a baby because it was a non-narcotic opium substitute. So they called it lacticarium, and it was like a poor man's opium. And you can also take this, boil this up and drink the tea. It'll make you sleep like a baby. And it doesn't matter which one you use. There's wild lettuce, prickly lettuce, poison lettuce. They all work the same.
So is it for pain too?
Very much for pain, yes.
So,
But it's non-narcotic. You can't get addicted to it. I've used this on people going to sleep disorder clinics before.
the reason I asked is I have RSD. So I could use that and not worry about
Try and see how it works. Try and see how it works. Oh yeah, this is non-addictive. You do a little research on it, you'll see. You can even find this on the internet where somebody's commercially preparing it. And what you do is you take this, tincture it, throw the leaves off, tincture some more, tincture it about 4 or 5 times. Then you take that and simmer it down, and it'll simmer down to what looks like black tar opium. You take a pinch of that, put it in some tea, and drink it, dissolve it in there. Good night.
Alright, me and wild lettuce.
If you eat a big garden salad, what happens? You get sleepy. Because garden lettuce is developed from this. This is just the ancestor to it. And if you let garden lettuce bolt and go to seed, it does the same thing. It'll have that sticky, bitter latex come out of it. It's very white looking on that, and it'll make you sleep.
Did you say you take the latex and you make a tea out of it and drink to sleep, or what?
Well, no, in that case, you just boil the whole plant.
Just boil the whole
Yeah.
plant. And
If
then,
you want to, you can tincture it. You know, with
Okay.
alcohol
yes.
for about 2 weeks. Take the leaves, squeeze all the juice out, add more leaves to the juice. 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks, 2 more weeks. And about the 4th or 5th time, then you take that liquid, simmer it on the stove in a double boiler, preferably, so you don't set the alcohol on fire. And it'll simmer down to what looks like a little black tar residue, and that is stupendously strong. You could inject that into the, and it's powerful. All right, how about this?
Water oak?
Water oak, isn't it?
No.
No? Willow oak?
Is it water or willow? How can you tell the difference?
The water has a little, almost like a post.
Sort of like this? That's water oak. Now, to make sure that you're not mistaking one for the other, you always look up, because these oaks will do that. And sometimes what looks like a water oak is actually a willow oak, or a willow oak is a water oak, but this is a willow oak. But it doesn't matter. All oaks have tannic acid in them. What does tannic acid do? It dries things up. Dries a cough. White oak bark is real good for a wet cough, for that matter, because of the tannins in it. But it dries things up. And remember, when Granny always went out and got stump water, right? For medicine, besides the fire water. And all that was water that sat up, and especially in an oak stump, and it pulled all the tannins out. So if you go to, South Carolina or South Alabama, you get in the swamp water, it's all nice and brown because of the tannins. You can just lay in that, and if the alligator doesn't get you, it'll get rid of poison ivy or heal cuts and scrapes and bad wounds. And that's what's doing, is the tannins in it. Or you can also use the acorns, which are really the best part to use. And this always goes in any skin salve I make, because of that. The tannins help to dry up and heal the wound. Okay, we'll loop back around that. That's that cherry laurel.
Andina.
Alright, you're talking about the Andina? See the yellow bark inside? Berberine. That's the Andina, but you can see the berberine in it. Andina. Don't plant it in your yard.
Why? I've got it all over my yard.
It spreads everywhere. You can't get rid of it.
my dog loves to urinate on it, so I put it out for him.
Well, don't use that one. Don't use that one. That's poison ivy. You don't have poison oak around here. We've got a subspecies, but it's rare.
Yeah.
It's just that whenever it grows out in the open, it doesn't have a tree to climb, it takes on that form. But we do have a little bit. And we have a lot of fragrant sumac here, which that's what looks like poison oak. I'll have to pick some and show it to you, because it looks just like western poison oak, except the berries are red and the typical sumac you can eat. All you got to do is look. If she's got, looks like little whelps that come up instead of pustules, that's English ivy.
That's what I say. Every year she goes and I say, well, we think you got poison ivy. And she said, oh no, I know what poison ivy. I think it's the English ivy.
This is that broadleaf plantain.
One of my favorites.
Not native. The English brought it over as food and medicine. What's the common name for it?
Which one, broadleaf plantain?
Either one. What's the common name people call it? Ribwort.
Ribwort.
See all the ribs in
I've heard
it?
it called that.
And when it gets any size, you've got to really, unless you're doing it as a green drink, strip the ribs out to cook it. But this is brought over, they brought it not only as medicine, but as food, because it's so nutritious and very mild tasting. And the ladies, you know, they'll get this big on them in a wet area. But it's called wort, because that wort, W-O-R-T, is an old English term. For a lot of books, it means common, but it also means, hey, stop, pay attention, this is important. They planted this everywhere they went, so the Indians called it white man's footsteps, supposedly. Powerful neutralizer of toxins. Had a lady, I probably said this before, called me a month or so ago, had spider bite. Brown recluse spider got her. So I told her, said, take your Irish potato, heat it in the microwave, hot as you can stand it, put it on there. When it cools off, take it off, then blend up hot plantain, put the hot poultice on. Next day she called, she said it hurt real bad when she put the potato on. When she pulled it off, you could see the bite mark, and you could see it was like black and brown and green in there. And she said by the next morning it was just a dot left from the spider bite. It's one thing that will stop a brown recluse spider bite from that constant necrosis, dying of tissue. It'll stop it. It always goes in skin salves because it's the one that makes skin cells regrow and regenerate. If you've got any kind of wound, you can pack plantain poultices on it or put it in salves. If you've got an abscess tooth, same thing on it, and it'll draw the abscess out, save the tooth, till you get to the dentist. If you've got into poison ivy, and if you really pay attention, it stings and burns, and most of the time we're not paying that much attention, so we don't notice that. If you crush the leaves up, put it on there, it'll neutralize the rusciol. If you've already got poison ivy, make that poultice in the blender, put it on, and within a day, in most cases, it'll stop that in its tracks. There's always an exception, but it's very much better than jewelweed. Internally, it pulls crap out of the system. It lowers cholesterol. The seeds are where you get psyllium seed, like in Metamucil. So it's a bulk laxative. Excellent plant to use. And it doesn't matter if you use this or the long lance leaf plantain. Any of the plantains work. They work equally well. Best thing to work for poison ivy. This was a little too hard, but you can melt it down and use it. But if you find it fresh, you can smell that. You get the fresh pine resin where it's just oozed out. If you put it on a cut, it'll seal it and heal it. Very healing, very antiseptic. If you've made the mistake of getting into sticker bushes, you got little stickers all in you, put that on, let it dry, peel it off, and you'll peel them out. Oh. It's just like super glue.
What about a tick?
I don't know if it did with a tick or not. It would smother it out, though. You want it smothered out.
That sounds good to me.
But to me, I just rotate them counterclockwise and pull.
Yeah, if you do that, you'll get them to regurgitate before you get your Lyme diseases.
Yeah. So counterclockwise, out.
Counterclockwise?
Counterclockwise, that folds their mandibles down.
Tar salve
And
on them, put a Band-Aid on it, it'll draw their back out.
that goes into what they call a lot of black tar salves or black salves, although it's not the Indian mud black salve. The leaves have more vitamin C than a lemon. Very good for fevers. It's another kidney medicine. coughs and colds. The pine resin itself you can use as plasters for pneumonia, congestion. Excellent tree to know. And I use it on my primitive skills classes as well. And this is what kind of pine? Loblolly. The way you tell them is main trees we have up here are loblolly and shortleaf, or what some people call Virginia pine. And they're the ones that are all just short and knobbly and all over the place. They have very short needles. The longleaf pine doesn't grow here. Though if you go to Fort McClellan, there's 11,000 acres of mountain longleaf, which is very rare. They got it protected. But normally you'd have to hit the longleaf down south or go a little further north, start hitting the white pine. If you went back, you used to be able to get what was called syrup of white pine, which is an official drug that you could buy at any pharmacy. And it was made with white pine, had bloodroot in it, and, oh, I know, one we got over here. Balm of Gilead a lot of times.
What's the difference with ponderosa pine?
Goes out with.
It's red.
All the pines is very red, very tall, and they all grow. It's a western pine, but all the pines work the same. Now, the white pine works the best as cough medicine. For some reason, it seems to, but you can't tell much difference.
Hibiscus?
Beautiful. This is a hibiscus, a mallow. If you look at the mallows, a hibiscus family, like Roses Sharons even, any of those cotton, they're all in that same family. The flowers on all these hibiscus and the roots are where the original marshmallows come from. Very mucilaginous, that's very good for irritable bowel problems. It coats, it's like slippery elm, it'll coat the gastrointestinal tract and put that mucus temporarily back on to stop the heat and the rawness as food goes through.
And okra also part of that family?
Okra, the same thing. That's why it's very slimy. You can take the leaves, chew the leaf, chew the flower, and it'll get real slimy tasting and mucusy, mucilaginous. But you can use any part of it. It's very, very good. Any of the ones you grow in your yard work just the same. We'll see the wild ones out behind the mall, and you see a lot of the white ones blooming. And then there's some called swamp pinks that are pink mallows that are grown wild.
What's it for?
Any kind of irritation in the system that you would want to calm and soothe down. Irritable bowel syndrome, colitis, Crohn's disease.
Mine are about twice that size.
Oh yeah, there's so many cultivated varieties. Some will get huge. All right, see the tall tree right here with the heart-shaped leaves? Covered in the wisteria. That's eastern cottonwood.
What cottonwood?
Eastern cottonwood. This fall and winter, we'll get out and find some that are a little bit shorter and pick the buds. And that is the family where you get balm of Gilead buds from. They'll be real, sort of a brownish yellow, real resinous, wonderful pain relievers externally, and wonderful for coughs. But if you ever look up balm of Gilead, this is not the exact tree. It's the one that grows up north, has huge buds on it. But all of the cottonwoods will make balm of Gilead. These just have smaller buds on them. They're little tiny ones, about that big, but they'd be just as sticky and resinous as can be. And the balm of Gilead that grows up north has big old fat buds on it. But this is the one to use in the winter time and late fall and early spring. Nice and sticky for making balm of Gilead, like in the cough medicine with white pine. We'll get some of that and put it together. Also, Queen Anne's lace is going to have that solid head, and it's going to have that purple center.
See, and we keep calling it black, and you're calling it purple.
It's considered, I think, maroon. And if you look real closely at it with a lens, you'll see it's a real dark purple. Okay. That's how you'll always know that you got Queen Anne's lace, because not every one, but some of them will have that little center flower will be purple, and they'll all be completely close together. Like,
Queen Anne's lace
yeah,
does?
like we'll stop and see something like that, where they're not separate. Do you see how these are separated? You can smell it. Crush the leaf and smell it. It does not smell like carrots. The only other plant that this resembles, and it resembles it somewhat closely, and you'll find more of, is water hemlock, which is deadly, deadly toxic. But take a leaf, one of these leaflets, look at it, and you're going to look at the veins in the leaf. And those veins will end at a tooth.
Yeah.
At the at the point. You see what I'm talking about? Yes, look at the veins. The front side usually easier, and the big veins will end.
Is that what you want me to do?
They're going to end where the little tips are. If you look at water hemlock, the veins will end in the notch itself. Alright, like there. See, here's the leaves, here are the tips. The veins follow and they end at the tips. Water hemlock, the veins are follow up and they end in the gap. That'll put you between the heaven and the earth. Or heaven somewhere. In the ground. But
Okay, you're talking about these little veins right there.
Yeah. See the veins? See this big vein? It ends at the tip.
Yes, yes.
Oh, the tip?
Yeah.
See what I'm talking about?
Did you want to see
These veins?
Go, 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 go.
End at the tips.
I was in herb finding mode. Everything else was taken
The
out.
water hemlock, those veins will end in the valley.
We do botany at 70 miles an hour.
It's probably all the dust coming up. They're not real sour yet, or are they?
they are.
Oh, okay. Just take you a few.
Yeah, they are too. Kind of in cold water. Whoa.
What you're tasting is malic acid.
That would make a really good lemonade.
Yeah.
That's malic acid.
Just like lemons.
It's like that people would call it Indian lemonade. It's not vitamin, even though it's got vitamin C, what you're tasting is malic acid, like in green apples.
When you strain the seed off.
But it is a wonderful kidney medicine, coughs and congestion,
Really, I have it down as an antiviral.
and powerful antiviral.
Powerful antiviral.
And you see how the berries are more compact than the dwarf sumac. They're sort of spread out, and then they'll cluster up closer together later, but they're not near as pretty as these. These will get much redder than this, and in some places you'll see them up towards Tennessee. I've seen it, and around here a little bit. They're so dark red they look black almost, but they're still red. Those are the best ones to use. If you go to Huntsville, go over what I can't remember the Gap Road. It goes over my in-law family. They've got the staghorn sumac up there, but it's not native. It was brought down as an ornamental, and it's escaped. Looks just like this, but real fuzzy.
I've seen
That's the difference, and it's just super. It's pretty and fuzzy. And it's a lighter color, but if you see it's been introduced. It's mainly a northeastern sumac. What kind is this again? Called scarlet or smooth.
Scarlet or smooth.
Or smooth, either one. It's Rustafina. If you look at the branches, you know, they're a lot smoother than the dwarf sumac, which has a real gnarly bark to it.
And you just take the top and do it in some sun tea and some water?
Some sun tea and water, right like that. 2 or 3 of these, soaked. Or if you're going to boil it, just barely simmer it because it'll get real puckery. That's it. Very tasty.
Yeah, we used to lick these in the evenings whenever we get through.
And people think they think all sumacs are poisonous. Only the white sumac, which is not
After you sip the seed.
poison internally as such. It
The recipe I
breaks you
use,
out because of the urushiol in it.
Oh, okay.
through your fingers, kind of bruise the berries, put them in cold water, let them sit for about
Echinacea. This is
cousin.
a close relative herbally to echinacea. It's sort of like if a headache responds better for you with Tylenol than aspirin, this is the equivalent of aspirin to the Tylenol. It's not as strong as echinacea, but it's darn close. And you use the root or the inner, you could just use the whole thing, but the inner part is the main medicinal part, the little brown part, or the root, and it's an immune stimulant.
You talking about the little flower seed head right here?
Huh?
That part?
Yeah, the brown part.
Is it a Rebecca? Is that what it is?
I believe this one's in the Rudbeckia family, if I'm not mistaken. You got a green or a gray coneflower and a green coneflower, and they'll work too.
Yeah.
I got some gray coneflower, and those suckers are hard to dig because every one of them pops up in this kind of land where it's been filled in. And I finally got some, but they're going to come back next year. But they're beautiful plants, tiny little gray little cones on them. But they had some around Huntsville, the green coneflower. They had cones that big, that tall on them. And then I've got a cabbage leaf coneflower that grows around the coast. That it has a head that big around, and the leaves are big leaves that look like cabbages.
I haven't seen that one.
Beautiful plant. People are starting to sell it every once in a while in the nursery now as an ornamental because it's so pretty. Yeah, that's a spurge. It's called prostrate spurge. If you look at the spurges,
We can eat these in salad, can't we?
no, you don't want to eat this in a salad because this gets rid of warts by burning them off. See the latex?
Now what would you call that again?
Prostrate spurge, I believe, is this variety. But all the spurges, see all that latex coming out? It'll burn you if you get enough of it on you. And that's how it takes the warts and moles and skin cancers off.
As a poultice? Or
No, you just put the sap on.
Really?
See all that?
that's
Oh,
it.
God. Oh.
Funny.
Smartweed. It's also called knotweed. You see the knotty joints. This is not Pennsylvania, this is lady's thumb. See, it looks like a thumbprint? Right there. Old rumor was, a guy killed his wife, blah, 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 mother-in-law or something, touched the leaf with the blood. Anyway, this is one of those herbs that acts as a catalyst. If you've got somebody that's real sick and you need something to make everything work better, work stronger, this is a plant to use. This is also one of the main plants I use for Aunt Susie for kidneys, the Seminole lady. This is probably what did the trick. Very powerful kidney medicine.
What was it again?
Smartweed.
Smartweed.
The reason it's called smartweed is when the flowers come out, they're pink and red, and there's a white variety that's not very smarty. They're peppery. You can dry them and use them like pepper. Not that it makes you smart. Back at the turn of the century, if you want to find a good book, and I guess I can either bring a copy, or I may have one back in the office and library. Dr. R.V. Pierce. Yeah, Dr. Pierce's Golden Medical Discovery was made with this, and he had his compound extract of smartweed. This put more people back on the road in the 1800s and early 1900s than anything else in the world. Tommy said it saved his mama's life when she was sick. But I put in anything that I just need something, man, you need some high-powered strength.
So you called it smartweed, knotweed, and I thought you used a third.
This is a type called lady's thumb because of that mark on it. So they'll work the same. And some will get 6 feet tall, some of them are tiny little ones. Okay, here's a blue verbena. Oh, no, skullcap.
Skullcap.
Oh, yeah. Mad Dog.
You just pull that up? Yeah, I believe so.
Yeah.
Very common around here in patches.
Way down there.
Feel that stem is just as square can be in that mint family. Next to lobelia, this is one of the best pain relievers that's safe that you can easily find and get hold of.
Okay, you got bical.
It doesn't matter. You can use everything from the Chinese skullcap to the skullcaps you buy at Lowe's in the garden shop. Every one of them will work the same for pain relief. The Mad Dog skullcap is the one they used to thought that was good for rabies. That may or may not be. But they are all potent pain relievers, just under lobelia in power. And you can use side flower and skullcap, any of the skullcaps. It really doesn't matter. They will all work the same. And when we go down behind the Gadsden Mall, the wildlife sanctuary, we'll see a lot of this. And there's a white flowered variety that the flowers have almost no bite to them at all, but the leaves still work. They're white. And then they've got the dwarf ones that's up there, but it's in their yard. It has little pink flowers. And you got Pennsylvania smartweed, which can get 6 feet tall.
What is that bluish purple?
That's the ironweed.
Ironweed. What is it for?
Build your iron levels in your body. Build up your system, your blood. We'll try if we can get hold of this. Okay, here's your oak leaf hydrangea. These are all small because they came in and scraped all this down when they fixed this road up. This is the one used the root on it, and it's a lithotriptic. It breaks up kidney stones. So they call it, in fact, they call it the stonebreaker plant. It's also a cologog. It works on the liver. There you go. Here's some of the blooms on it. This is the Pennsylvania smartweed. Little white flowered, I believe. See, it doesn't have the thumbprint on it. At least more narrow. But they also call this oak leaf hydrangea. This is where all the modern hydrangeas in your yard come from. It's a source of vegetable cortisone, so it's good, very good for arthritis and gallbladder trouble.
What's that?
That's their smartweed, Pennsylvania smartweed, I believe.
Hmm.
See the difference in the leaf shape? Hey, Tammy, when you get through, bring a big leaf of that and we'll show the difference.
The other one's lady thumb, right?
The others is lady thumb, but they're all, what, I think, polygonatum. Alright. But you still see the joints in it? Looks similar, but not the same. But it's the same use, like different types of skullcap or peaches. In Chinese medicine, isn't it called Ho Shu Wu? I think you'll see it listed.
Ho Shu Wu?
Or Fo Ti, one or the other. One is Solomon Seal, one is Smartweed. Fo Ti or Ho Shu Wu, I think. But what about? See if they're peppery yet. No bite.
Not very.
Sometimes, you know, some do and some don't.
That one,
Pretty hard.
I'm not getting any.
No, not
Get
yet.
it around water where it's just not had enough rain. When you get them around water where they've got plenty of to drink, they get, I mean, hot.
Yeah, I've had some that are hot.
Really, I like it. Especially you dry them and use them like a black powder. I mean, a black powder, like a black.
So this is what you showed in that talk back at the library? This was that pepper you were talking about? No, you held up something else, some little small thing.
That was more out.
No, that was pepper grass.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right, this one here, you gotta be careful with. This is your prickly ash. If you're very careful to feel the undersides of these leaflets, you'll feel the little thorns on it. This is called Devil's Walking Stick or Hercules Club. It is not the tree prickly ash that you'll see in some of the books. This is called shrub prickly ash, and it's actually related to ginseng. This is the one that get real tall, and you'll see big patches of them. That's
prickly ash, young?
Yeah, that's just the only. It's probably been cut back, bush hogged.
Yeah.
Oh, y'all got that all over Tennessee, everywhere. And this is the real powerful anti-inflammatory, very good for arthritis, especially if you mix it with cucumber tree magnolia. Also, the young shoots are edible as well.
Could you not use prickly ash and the hydrangea together?
Sure, you can.
I used prickly ash. I had a tooth start hurting.
Mm-hmm.
I put the inner bark
That
on
inner bark.
That's
That's why they call it toothache tree.
gone.
Yeah, it'll sting for a second.
That's right.
And then numb it.
And then it numbed it. It held until I got to the demon. That's devil's walking stick. Prickly ash. Commonly known as devil's walking stick. When you go into
Oh,
the
just
woods,
grab
you
the whole
stumble,
stem,
you
pull
grab
it
the
up.
whole of the limb.
Yeah.
Bush, 9 out of 10 times that's what you get a hold of. So they got thorns all up and down the main stalk.
Yeah, you'll see it. And take that and smell it. You'll always recognize the odor.
That's what I was telling him. Great thing to stop.
This one doesn't have as many thorns on the bottom, does it?
Some of them,
very
and some of them will get more than that, but the thorns really start to come up on the branch, on the trunk.
We've got some
Now,
all over the place.
if you take that, here's a good example of your cambrium layer.
Let me see. You knew to grab my attention.
All right, you peel that, peel the bark off, the outer bark. That's the layer underneath it. That's what you.
That's your inner bark.
That's your inner bark. That you want, that part that peels out like that. That's the cambrium layer. You feel the slickness to it.
So
Yeah.
I was thinking, I don't mean to confuse nobody, but
Now, that
green-
part. No, that's part of it. Yeah, you gotta see. And that's part of it too. That's just peeled off.
the
All
white.
all that's usable. See the part that easily peels off?
Uh-huh.
Now you're down to what would on a tree would be the heartwood.
Okay. Watch your fingers.
Yeah.
Anybody?
But the thing about it is when you work with it, you can see how it peels off. If you put that on you can. It's not pleasant, maybe. It's not bad. But if you
Will
take
the tea
it,
taste like it?
you can take your knife and these will break off. Really, you just scrape them up and down and they'll come off. And it's related to ginseng.
I don't think so.
Good blood purifier.
Does anybody want to?
And it's called, also known as Angelica tree. You have a big basketball head of white flowers, and then blackberries later. Still framed in?
Yep.
Alright. In the South, it's hard to find a slippery elm tree that's not been cut down if it's of any size. And the reason being is back in the 1800s and 1700s, it was eaten as food and it was used extensively as medication. So everybody cut all the big, beautiful trees down, and now we're left with smaller trees until